They called him the Red King, the man who promised hope, profit, and philanthropy, all wrapped in crimson flair. From Instagram charity posts to glossy investment ads, he was everywhere. Until one morning, the crimson turned into caution, and thousands of Nigerians realized their dreams had been painted red too. This is the story of the Chinmark Group, once hailed as a symbol of African enterprise, later branded one of Nigeria's biggest cautionary tales, and of the man at its center, Marksman Chinedu Ijiomah, a name once synonymous with generosity, and now with loss. To understand Chinmark, you have to understand Marksman himself. He wasn't born into wealth. In interviews, he described growing up with little, a hustler's mindset, a faith-driven vision, and an obsession with creating something bigger than himself. In 2016, he founded Chinmark Group, named after his first name, Chinedu, and his desire to leave a mark. The brand color was red, chosen, he said, to represent courage and love. But to many, it later came to mean something else entirely. The group positioned itself as a conglomerate: real estate, transport, agriculture, finance, hospitality, almost every buzzword in modern Nigerian entrepreneurship. On Instagram, Marksman posted devotionals about God and business. On Facebook, he shared testimonies of people who invested and got paid. And in churches and conferences across the country, he preached a gospel of wealth creation through faith. For a nation fatigued by failed governments and broken systems, Chinmark looked like hope with a human face. It wasn't just the message, it was the man. Charismatic, articulate, and always smiling, he appeared to live the success he promised. He drove luxury cars and also gave scholarships. He built houses and also built churches. He was the kind of man you wanted to trust. By 2020, his brand exploded.
With presence in over 7 states across the country, Chinmark Group is now expanding its operations to accommodate a new branch office in Lagos to cater to various needs ranging from land sales and purchases to estate development, transportation, and medicals, among other services.
Influencers began partnering with Chinmark. Billboards appeared in major cities. To millions of Nigerians, it looked legitimate, a modern success story. But beneath the sleek branding and red logos, something else was brewing. The foundation of Chinmark's empire wasn't built on product sales or measurable profit. It was built on promises. Investors depositing money with the expectation of monthly returns as high as 3 to 5%. On paper, it sounded like microfinance meets real estate. In reality, it was an informal savings network run without regulatory oversight. At first, everything worked. Early investors were paid handsomely, often using funds from new investors, the classic pattern every Ponzi begins with. And for a while, nobody questioned it. Why would they? The man on the posters was giving hope and returns. Marksman called Chinmark a movement, not a company. And movements attract believers. People sold their land, withdrew pensions, convinced relatives abroad to invest. Some even testified in church that Chinmark was a divine appointment. When people questioned the business model, defenders said, "Touch not the Lord's anointed." Faith had fused with finance, and the result was explosive. For a country scarred by failed institutions, Chinmark offered something that felt different. "We're not a bank," they'd say. "We're a family." And for thousands, that line was enough. But every family has secrets, and every miracle has an expiry date. 2021 was the year of the Red Empire. Chinmark buses rolled through cities. Hotels and restaurants were branded with the crimson logo. It looked like a movement no one could stop. The company claimed to have branches across Nigeria, and even in Dubai. By mid-2021, Estimates from local analysts suggested that Chinmark had raised billions of naira in private capital. No public audit, no license, but confidence was high. And then, in December, everything changed. A single press release would ignite panic across Nigeria's investment community. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the nation's financial watchdog, had issued a public warning. The statement named two companies, Finafrica Investment Limited and Chinmark Group. It declared, without hesitation, that both entities were not registered to carry out investment business in Nigeria. By evening, the founder himself appeared in a live broadcast. He smiled, quoted scripture, and told investors, "Don't be afraid. We are not a Ponzi. We are building real value." And for many, that was enough. Behind the scenes, cash flow was cracking. ROI payments started delaying. When the money stopped flowing, the silence was impossible to ignore. People who once called Chinmark a movement suddenly realized they hadn't heard from him in weeks. No payments, no replies, no hope. Then the media picked it up. What began as social media chatter became front-page news. Headlines screamed across blogs and dailies. For many Nigerians, it was déjà vu. Chinmark wasn't faceless. He was visible, charismatic, articulate, and deeply religious. He quoted Bible verses. He called investors partners. He hosted charity drives and sponsored weddings. To many, he wasn't a businessman. He was family. As news of the silence spread, reactions split the nation in two. On one side, rage. Thousands of posts demanding arrest. Investors camped outside his offices. A few even threatened lawsuits and protests. On the other side, faith. Loyal followers called it persecution. They said God was testing their patience. They reminded others of the miracles he had done. Scholarships, hospital bills, feeding programs. The more divided the public became, the more silent Chinmark grew. No press conference, no statement, just silence. Meanwhile, the Securities and Exchange Commission stood firm. The Red Empire had entered its storm, and no one, not even its king, seemed ready to face it. If the SEC's warning was a tremor, the real earthquake came 2 years later. 2023, when the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, the NFIU, quietly published a classified report. The document was meant for internal circulation, not headlines. But when excerpts leaked online, it felt like a final judgment. The NFIU is Nigeria's financial intelligence nerve center, the agency that tracks suspicious money flow, laundering, and illicit financial patterns. When your name appears in their documentation, it means something deeper has been traced. According to investigative journalists who accessed parts of the report, the agency had followed multiple suspicious transaction trails linked to Chinmark subsidiaries. Money entering as investments and quickly rerouted through shell accounts. Some transfers looped through unrelated entities with no corporate purpose. Others, investigators said, were tagged with loan repayments or marketing expenses, but had no invoices or contracts attached. Forensic analysts told reporters the movement resembled a circular funding system, classic Ponzi architecture. Old investors were paid with new investors' deposits. No traceable external income, no verified project revenue. Just a cycle of inflows feeding outflows until the music stopped. The report didn't stop there. It also highlighted that most of Chinmark's investment pitches were done without central bank authorization, and that no financial licensing existed under the names Finafrica or Chinmark in the National Registry. With the NFIU's signature on that document, the story changed forever. What many had called a temporary cash flow problem was now documented as a pattern of financial misconduct. It was official confirmation that this wasn't a business hiccup. It was systemic manipulation. For investors still holding on to hope, that silence was louder than any confession. Days after the report surfaced, small news blogs tried reaching out to the company for comment. No official reply. The website, once filled with red banners and smiling testimonials, quietly went offline. Marksman went offline for months. Offices closed, staff disappeared, and by mid-2023, thousands of investors realized their money was gone. The Red Nation, as followers once called themselves, was now a ghost town. Journalists began to piece it together. Funds collected under investment agreements had been moved between accounts of different subsidiaries, none of which were licensed for finance. The so-called business model was a web of cross-payments sustained by constant inflow. It was a textbook Ponzi collapse, wrapped in faith and charity. And just like that, the Red Empire crumbled. By 2025, Chinmark had become a cautionary tale, a ghost story whispered in business classrooms and Twitter spaces. Its name now stood beside every Nigerian Ponzi collapse in history. And yet, unlike others, it carried something deeper. A moral lesson about faith, greed, and human nature. On YouTube, documentaries began dissecting the saga. Economists analyzed how trust networks built around religion and culture can be weaponized for fraud. Sociologists called it emotional capitalism, where belief, not profit, fuels participation. In churches and conferences, pastors referenced Chinmark as a warning. Don't mix faith with finance. Even the devil can wear red. The same color that once symbolized love had become the color of loss. For the founder, life went quiet again. No major new business launch, no public apology, just scattered posts, motivational quotes, charity updates, promises of revival. But the magic was gone. The believers had moved on. But beneath all the noise, one truth remains. In a country where dreams are scarce, hope itself can become currency. And when hope is sold too well, the people pay the price. The Chinmark story isn't just about one man. It's about a nation's relationship with faith, wealth, and trust. A mirror of our collective hunger for success, for belonging, for miracles that feel attainable. For every Chinmark, there are a dozen others waiting to happen. Different colors, different names, same psychology. This was The Rise and Fall of Chinmark Group, a crime syndicate backed by faith. A story not about one man's greed, but about the cost of misplaced faith, about the power of storytelling and the price of believing too easily. If you found this story insightful, subscribe for more deep dives into the untold stories behind the headlines, the people, the systems, and the lessons we can't afford to ignore.